Aresco first. What does the ruling from the NCAA that happened last week, how does that affect the American? I know you touched on it briefly there, but how does it affect you guys as compared to where it was 2 weeks ago? Just can you go over that? And on the other hand, President Fitz, what is Tulane's commitment to sticking with whatever the American decides as far as that model?
Are you talking about the governance redesign proposal? Yes. First of all, as I said at our media day in Newport, our football media day, if we understand it properly and we deal with it properly, we don't really have anything to fear. We feel aligned with the so-called autonomous conferences. We feel that we have similar interests. We want to embrace cost of attendance. Scholarships have not kept pace over the years with the cost of attending school. We're going to do that, I believe, as a conference. We're going to probably leave it to individual schools to do some of the other things that we're talking about. Many of those things have been deregulated for some time, and you can do them anyway. We take good care of our student athletes, and we always will. There's another aspect of this redesign model that was extremely important. We wanted to make sure, and we monitored this closely for over a year and a half, to make sure that we remain competitive in this new world and in this new model. And I can assure you, and I can assure Tulane fans, alumni, supporters, we are going to be extremely competitive. Scholarship limits in football have not changed. They won't change without our consent. There's shared governance with respect to that, meaning that everyone has an equal say in the FBS room, FBS football, the 10 conferences. That was absolutely critical. That is not part of this autonomous proposal. In addition, transfer rules aren't changing for at least 2 years, and they're not likely to change. There's probably going to be a comprehensive settlement with respect to transfer rules. With scholarships and transfer rules in place as they are, we can compete with anyone. We have to be smarter. We have to use our resources in a more intelligent way. We've done that historically. It's a new world now. There are many great student athletes out there. We're in great recruiting areas. We think we're going to do fine. So we think this model will ultimately, our board seat is maintained. We think we came through it quite well. We'll have to see how it works out. We'll monitor it. We'll be very vigilant, but we think it's going to be fine for us. Oh, excuse me, Mike.
Am I good? Go ahead, Mike. In terms of Tulane, we are absolutely committed to the American Athletic Conference, and obviously we'll follow their lead in all of these matters. More generally, we're committed to our student athletes and ensuring that they have not only a great education, but a great athletic experience here.
Commissioner, couple of things. How are financially you anticipate being able to keep up with the Power Five? And you mentioned destroy the current model. Can you kind of elaborate on what you meant by that?
Yeah. First of all, in terms of destroying the model, what we don't want is to professionalize the sports. Now, I'm not going to speak to the recent O'Bannon decision. We're not commenting publicly on that. But this is a larger issue in college athletics that I spoke to at Media Day. We want to make sure that we maintain the amateur model. We want to make sure that we aren't paying student athletes, that we don't create an employer-employee relationship, because I think that's going to be ultimately destructive to what we're trying to accomplish. How can education be the bedrock principle of your conference and your schools if, in fact, you're engaging in essentially professional athletics? That's not what our schools want to do, and we're going to fight that battle to the end. And I think ultimately we will prevail, because I think that ultimately I think precedent is on our side. I also think that, frankly, our alumni, our fans, our supporters don't want that. In terms of the finances of our conference, first of all, our schools we're not the have-nots. I've said that before. Our schools have resources, but also our conference has resources. What people forget is we have 2 TV deals. We don't have the revenue from those TV deals that some of the other 5 conferences have, because we were in some turmoil a year and a half ago when we had to do those deals. But what we do have is we have revenue coming from schools that departed. We have revenues coming from units left behind. It almost serves as a second TV deal. We have revenue. We expect down the road to grow that revenue in many different ways. We'll be talking to our TV partners now that we've had some phenomenal success, and they can see the huge potential in our conference. So I think that's going to be a factor down the road. In addition, I think you have to remember that cost of attendance it'll be expensive. It's something, though, that I think our schools have all felt is the right thing to do. Scholarships have not kept pace with the cost of going to school. But beyond that, some of the things we may or may not do, and some of those things are nuanced. You look at insurance, and we provide extremely well, as Rick and President Fitz can tell you. We provide extremely well for our student athletes in all areas. And in terms of food and other kinds of things, as George O'Leary joked at our media day, how much can the kids eat? You know, at some point, we're providing, no one's going to bed hungry, believe me. We're providing for our student athletes. We're going to continue to provide for them. Now, there's certain other things that you can now spend money on. The autonomous five will have their own issues, believe me, as they get into the room. And incidentally, we are knocking on that door. We want to be in that room. I think eventually we will be in that room. I think we'll be accepted eventually as the 6th Power Conference. I don't particularly like the name Power because obviously some people are sometimes excluded from that conversation, I think unfairly. I don't love the name, but as long as that name exists, we're going to be calling ourselves a Power Conference because we proved it on the court and on the field.
Having a chance to see Tulane in the physical plant today, how much did the facilities and what they've done in the last 4 or 5 years impact your decision when you were looking at Tulane? I mean, what was kind of the parameters set up for you when you wanted to pick a school, and why did Tulane get the invite?
That's a very good question. First of all, I was enamored of Tulane's history. The quality of Tulane as an academic institution, it really is one of the foremost in the country. That meant a lot to our conference. If you look at our conference with the Naval Academy, University of Tulsa, SMU, our important state schools, we are really a fine conference academically. That meant a lot. We knew that Tulane had great athletic tradition, and that was another factor. We knew that it is in a great city and a great market. But I always like to rely on the people who are there. I think you know, as Warren Buffett would say, you know, you really want to make sure that when you're dealing with another entity that you've really got great people in place. We had great people here. We knew that Scott Cowan had been a visionary and that he had, in the wake of Katrina, had made a commitment to keep athletics and build athletics into to bring athletics to a higher level. And I had known Rick Dickson for many years. You know, when Rick was at Washington State, they went to the Rose Bowl for the first time in almost a century. I knew what Rick was doing. I knew they had made a commitment. We had talked to them extensively. And obviously now with President Fitz, who's made a commitment and a recommitment to what Tulane is trying to do, I have no doubt that this is going to be a great story and they're going to be a great addition to this conference. And I believe that in a short time, when Tulane has the kind of success in our conference I think they'll have, that the major media will be writing about what Tulane has done, what they've done over the last half decade, or decade actually, and I'm going to be very proud when that day arrives, and it's going to arrive sooner than later. Thank you.
Rick, this is a question for you. With the new stipends coming or whatever that is that the Autonomous Five will be doing, do you see that as a problem for Tulane, financing that and making sure that, hey, we've got enough money to do this and bringing in other sources of revenue? Does that mean maybe going out and playing more SEC schools, you think, or Big 12 schools or whatever?
No. Well, first, just to go back to the top is, along with, kind of ties it back to what Mike alluded to on all these issues. You know, for some time now, in fact, over the last year, we've been actively participating in the American Conference, and so we've collectively discussed and taken positions on this. And I would tell you unanimously, all of our schools have already voted, including Tulane, to make certain that in the event that that legislation for cost of attendance takes place, you know, we will concur with that. And I think just as, you know, one is it kind of fits into our overall outlook and objective of how our partnership with our student athletes. We've always taken it very seriously. In fact, in some of our private conversations, it almost, you know, you almost question some of the people out there saying we're now going to take care of student athletes. Where have they been? We've been doing it with less resources at a school like this and in a conference like this for decades. We take care of our kids. For, you know, those to say now because it's convenient that we're going to take better care of kids, you maybe question the motives. So, but, you know, those are things that are not inconsistent with what a lot of funding on college campuses are. There's a lot of different financial aid packages that do include the cost of attendance, so this will just bring us more in line with what is happening not only on our campus but around the country.
Any more questions? All right, thanks. We'll have one-on-one interviews with each of our speakers.
Good job.